So let's talk about discovery hold. First of all, hold and eDiscovery are, in fact, premium features. So from here on, what we're talking about, you either need enterprise CALs if you're talking about on-premise deployments, or you need either the E4 or the E3 or the E4 plan if you're running Office 365. In Exchange 2010, there was something called Litigation Hold. Litigation Hold was all or nothing. You put Litigation Hold on a mailbox, everything got held indefinitely until you remove the litigation hold. In Exchange 2013, litigation hold still exists, but it exists primarily so that if you migrate a mailbox from a 2010 server to a 2013 server while you have litigation hold on it, all of the litigation hold settings are preserved. But 2013 now introduces this thing called in-place hold, which can work three different ways. Indefinite hold, which is the same as litigation hold. Everything's on hold, period, indefinitely until you remove the hold from the mailbox. But you can also place a query-based hold. And with a query-based hold, all existing and all future items that happen to match the query parameters will be held. And if the user attempts to hard delete something that is being held because it's meeting the query parameters, that message gets copied down to the discovery hold subfolder in the recoverable items folder. So we're still hanging on to it. So once again, the user may think it's gone, they may think they've covered their tracks, but it's actually just been moved down to a discovery hold subfolder. And there is also a time-based hold, and if you wanted to make sure that email messages on Office 365 were retained for a specific period, here's how you would do it. You just put every mailbox on a time-based hold. Unfortunately, there's no easy way to do that in bulk. So it could be a pain. But you could put every user mailbox on a 2-year time-based hold. And then you'll be sure that every email is going to be around for 2 years from the date it was received or created, not from the time you put the hold on. And that's important to remember. You put a hold on today, that's say a 2-year time-based hold, put it on today. If the user deletes an item from a folder that's already 18 months old, that item is only going to be retained for another 6 months. Because the time period is calculated from the date the item was received or created, not from the date you put the hold on the mailbox. So, important thing to keep in mind. You can put multiple holds on the same mailbox. You could have a time-based hold. You might have several different query-based holds that are related to different levels and different kinds of investigations. What's going to happen if you try to put more than 5 holds, it'll just flop over to indefinite hold. Too much to keep track of. And it'll keep everything on hold until the number of holds drops to 5 or fewer, and then it'll go back to just granularly holding what you want it to hold. You need some specific user rights in order to put a mailbox on hold. And the important thing to note here is that by default, no one has those rights. So those rights have to be explicitly granted to someone before they can start putting mailboxes on hold. As far as the mechanism of how you do it, in Exchange 2013, you can either use a wizard called the In-Place eDiscovery and Hold wizard in the Exchange Admin Center. Or if you just really love using PowerShell, there's a way to put mailboxes on hold from PowerShell as well. And there is a great tutorial out there on msexchange.org, complete with screenshots that will step you through, step by step, here's how you put a mailbox on hold using either one of those methods. Things to note. It may take an hour or so before your hold fully takes effect, kind of depends on the size of the organization. It's got to apply the policy to all of the folders and all the items in the folders. It's got to replicate across Active Directory and so on. So it depends on the complexity of the environment, but it could take an hour or so from the time you put a hold on until it's fully in effect. It is on you, really, to be aware of the quota on the recoverable items folder. Remember we said there is a separate quota on the recoverable items folder. It sets a warning level at 20 gig, and it's a hard quota at 30 gig unless you go in and change it. And of course, you put a mailbox on hold, the recoverable items folder is going to start to grow. So it's really on you. This says, unless you're on Office 365, I've seen two different sets of information in my research. One set said, yeah, you don't have to worry about it if you're on Office 365. The Microsoft Exchange admins will just take care of increasing the storage for you. And then I read something else that I think was more recent that said, no, they won't do that anymore. It's still on you to monitor the size of that recoverable items folder and request an increase in the quota if you need an increase on the quota. So I think the safe thing to do is to assume that it's on you to make sure that you never exceed that 30 gig in the recoverable items folder. Yes, sir?
Is that quota cumulative, or is that by mailbox?
By mailbox.
Ah.
Yeah, it's each individual, because the recoverable items folder is per mailbox.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And then the other thing is, do not, under any circumstance, delete a user account of a user that is on hold. Because if you do, sooner or later, Exchange will figure out that that mailbox is not associated with an active user account, and the mailbox will be deleted, regardless of whether or not you had it on hold. So don't do that. Disable the user account, change mailbox properties, but keep that user account around until the hold is no longer required.